Hello, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Evgeny.
And I'm Anastasia.
And welcome to Allcorrect Gamedev Show. And with us today, Brooke Van Dusen. Hello, Brooke.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Thank you for joining us today. And Brooke Van Dusen is an expert in external development and procurement, helping game studios find and build great partnership. He founded CDR External Development, where he advises companies on smart outsourcing strategies and effective ways to work with external teams. Brooke also runs the blog Pixel Procurement, sharing practical tips, industry trends, and insights about how studios can improve their external development practices. He's passionate about making outsourcing better and easier for everyone involved.
That was a long one. I didn't.
We'll test everyone on that afterwards.
Yeah. Good.
All right. Great to have you today. Thanks for coming. And the first one would be a classical one. Please do tell us about the first game you ever played. First video game, I mean.
Oh, man. What a question. I think more than the first ever video game I ever played, my first memory of games is I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and Nintendo of America is based right outside of Seattle, Washington. And I have no idea why, but we went over to one of my parents' friends' house for dinner, and the dad worked for Nintendo. And they had like every video game you can imagine there. And I was like 4 or 5. I mean, and when we left, there was a Nintendo on the hood of our car. And I will never forget that day. So Super Mario, Duck Hunt were like, I was just classic Nintendo kid growing up. And yeah, those are my earliest memories.
My God, that's a very nice present.
Yes. Exactly.
Yes, I should track him down and thank him 35 years later. Right, so
imagine that.
That's my dad, yeah.
Cool. Well, when I was a kid, I also wanted to get this. Well, we didn't have Nintendo in Russia. We had Nintendo clones. They're called Dendy. That's like a very specific phenomenon. And I was very happy when I got one. It was in 1992, and I was just.
How old were you back then?
I was 8.
8.
So yeah, it was the best day of my life.
Did your friends play too? Because
of course, everyone played. Yeah. It was
that's it.
Yeah, I mean, first I played with my friends, then I realized that it's just I don't have enough time to to play, and then I asked my mom to buy me, and I kept nagging for months, and finally got it, and
that's awesome.
That was great.
Yeah, well, we fell into video games kind of accidentally, as you heard, but my parents they had a strong opinion on television, and they banned TV in our household, but they did not ban video games. And which, today they're one and the same, right? People consider screen time broadly, but at least for me growing up, video games were in a separate category because I think they were just so new. I'm not really sure why. So, that was my venue, right? That's and I was the best Halo player in high school. I was great.
Oh my God.
This is Dave
You were not a
Lampard.
popular kid, were you?
It didn't give me the social capital that I hear the top Fortnite players
for some reason
have today. It was still me and my friends, but I'll still carry that banner around. So yeah.
Well, that's cool. I have a question, a specific one. Did your parents kind of urged you not to play too much because consoles kind of damage the TV?
No, but I mean,
No?
TV was it was movies and it was video games, and so that was never a concern. Yeah, I mean,
I've never heard
for some reason it was
what
believed that consoles like Nintendo they damage the TV and you should better not
damage
play
how?
them too much.
What's the way of console damaging?
They make the screen fade out, burn out. Yes.
Oh my God! Okay.
Yeah.
Especially for some reason them. I don't know why.
Yeah, I remember that from arcades, right? Because they would have they would be on 24/7, but that. At least that concern was never carried into our household. And I don't know, is that something that's a common concern? And was that you always had to remember to not play more than a certain amount of time, or
is just yes, not you should not. But there was not, in my case, it was not a certain amount of time. It was not. Don't play too much, and too much was kind of category. That differed from time to time. But
Sure.
in all cases, like if my mom wanted me to to do something else except playing, she reminded me that the console is damaging the TV. Just please
go do homework.
As a parent today, that sounds like one of those excuses you make up.
Yeah,
totally.
kind of. Yeah, it does look
God.
like that. It does look like that.
You're like, it's bad for you. You'll get sick if you eat it or whatever.
Yes. And now I have a PTSD because of that.
PTSD, so now you play all the time, huh?
Yes, in order to overcome. Yes.
Okay.
All right. How did you get to the gaming industry?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean that's the question. How did you get into the gaming?
Oh,
industry?
how did I get it? Yeah, thank you. So I. My story's a little bit unique, non-traditional in games. I moved to San Francisco about 15 years ago with the intent to work in startups. Although 15 years ago, startups was not common parlance. I just heard that, whoa, they let kids run companies out here. And I thought that was really cool. And, Y Combinator was barely a thing. I actually ended up working for a couple Y Combinator companies without knowing that was the case. And anyway, I ended up at this one company because they played StarCraft. I love StarCraft.
Oh my God.
They also
I feel you, man.
It wasn't eventually the company launched Twitch a couple months after I joined. So that was my entrance into games, was through Twitch, and I was there from 20 to 2000 through the acquisition with Amazon, ran BD for most of my time there. And then post-acquisition, I helped start the developer relations group working with game studios. And at the time, we were trying to recreate the magic of Twitch Plays Pokemon. We thought that this had the potential to be a new genre, which I still think it does. We never really cracked the nut, but that kind of made me fall in love with game development, and so took my career from there. Yeah,
cool.
What a story, though.
Yeah,
Twitch is such a thing nowadays.
Yeah.
Everybody's on Twitch. It's like, I don't know. Everybody was on Instagram in 2011. Now everybody's on Twitch. This is I don't know. Everything switches very swiftly, but yeah.
Early days of Twitch was really interesting. I remember going on a date with my now wife, and I was wearing a Twitch, either a hoodie or a t-shirt, and this was before you could buy them, right? Like early days.
Okay. That's a good way to impress a girl.
Yeah, it was smart early on, just because the revenue didn't matter for us at the time, and it became this like very coveted item that we would give away to partners. And anyway, I was wearing the piece of clothing, and the server at the restaurant came up and was just starstruck. He goes, "You work for Twitch? It's changed my life." And then he went on this huge rant. And meanwhile, it was like it was like a second or third date. She was just like, "Who are you? What is this thing you're doing?" And so another person, I probably should figure out who they were.
Yeah, a wingman.
Give a deep thank you to 15 years later. So yeah, those early days were fun. I call those the golden days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Moving on to the next question. How did you come up with an idea of CDR External Development?
Yeah. So I've worked in venture-funded game startups more or less my whole career. Twitch was obviously the one kind of big success there, selling for Amazon for 1.1 billion. And then it was so much fun that I decided I wanted to do that again, and then basically got punched in the face for 7 years. Turns out $1 billion startups are really hard and don't come along that often. But, I worked for about a half a dozen companies that raised collectively close to $100 million. And without knowing it, I was just in the place where I had to do a lot of external development, right? We needed to scale. We need a certain type of expertise, always in games. And we did it really poorly. We did the standard, ask everyone who has a good network, who they've used. And we got lucky enough that we found some partners that were really good. So we knew what good looked like. And over time, we started flying around the world, going to, scouting for talent, looking for the right partners. We also got better at identifying our own needs and being very detailed around that. And it was just, sitting on one of these international flights, I was like, does everyone do this? This is a lot of work, and it feels very duplicative, right? And so that was kind of the start of it. But and what CDR has grown into is a full stack outsourcing solution for independent studios and startups, right? And so kind of based on that experience, I would have loved to have this. And what that is we really act like a company's external development department. So we not only handle everything from procurement through final delivery and take responsibility for that whole process, but really we just act as a go-to for everything from, if they have a new project, how should we resource this? If we want to get some kind of pricing on a certain idea to help them plan, to, in operations, we do a lot of the mediation and are things on track? Is there a misaligned expectation? Or, as basic as, okay, is this project going over? Do we need a renewal? Do we need an extension? All of that is handled by us so that the client can focus on what matters to them, right? The product, the game, the quality of the deliveries, and so forth.
Okay, so as if I'm getting it right, you basically created Uber in outsourcing.
Created say that one more word.
An Uber that
Uber
a taxi type of, yeah.
I ironically 6 months ago I wouldn't have said that, but we actually have some software now where we give a template to our clients that says approve this new provider, and they click one button and they approve it. So yes,
so yeah.
Okay.
We try to make things as easy as possible. I think the difference between Uber and CDR is I don't call ourselves a platform, right? Everything we do is very hands-on. When we get to that step where it's click the button, that's after we've gone through an entire process, right? And talked to, and questions and partnership proposals and negotiated contracts on their behalf. And then the button is really just the final result so that it's easy for the client and they don't have to deal with the underlying contracts and bureaucracy, right? So we we carry kind of prime contracts, so that they can negotiate with us once, and then everything else is more or less passed through in a very easy to manage way to make it easier to onboard and offboard.
Cool. That's a very interesting business model, I think. And do you have competitors and if you have, what helps you to stand out?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of companies in kind of offering external development services. I think all of us have kind of our own flavor, right? And some have taken like XDS Spark and Gabe Caviar have taken the platform approach. Okay, we'll help you with finding and identifying the right partners. There's a whole slew of freelancers and consultants out there kind of offering similar services, whether it's like going in and auditing your existing operations and making sure you're set up efficiently. I think what makes CDR different is our buy side focus. So one of the things that this industry, and if we talk about this very niche kind of external development services industry, does is it evolved out of the agency model where the common way to get paid was to be actually get a percentage of the payment from the provider, right? If you find them a contract, then you get a percentage, and that model is great. And by the way, if someone wants to use us for only matchmaking and doesn't want the rest of the full stack, we're happy to do that in a very narrow project by project way. But for our full stack clients and it was really important to us that we stay buy side aligned because we just felt like that's where most the value we could give comes from, right? Because it starts it's not just which provider is the right for what you're doing. Well, that is very, very important. But the other piece of it is, how well are you communicating your project, right? And the better you communicate, like, here's the vision, here's what we need to do, here are the constraints, here are the requirements, the better alignment you're going to have with the provider, and the less time you're going to be spending in operations having to course correct, and all that just goes into forward progress. And that's a lot of, this is one piece of it, but that's a lot of work. Right? Because usually this information, when you're talking about a game project, it's in a knowledge base, a little bit of it, and then you have assets somewhere in a Perforce or Google Drive, and then half of it's in someone's head, and the other half is on a different person's laptop, and and then you have to collect it all in a way, what's relevant, what's not relevant, which can be hard to do if you're in the weeds. So getting an external person to come in and not only give you perspective on that, on what's important from a person coming in, but also have knowledge of the market, right? What do they need to know? And be able to tailor that documentation in a way that's appropriate. That's a lot of value.
I have a kind of subsequent question, I would say. How important do you think networking for your specific company is? Because I do believe that without a huge networking web around you, you wouldn't be able to connect people with each other, right? So
totally.
Yeah. Did working, like doing everything that you did in your previous jobs, help you with that? Like building that kind of network around you?
Yeah. So the first thing it taught me was the importance of understanding what it is you need, right? And I know, like, this sounds very basic, but it happens a lot where people don't like deeply consider the various capabilities required to deliver a project successfully, right? And it could be, games is super multidisciplinary. If you're asking for something very, very narrow, sure, it could just be like, hey, you need some 3D art. Okay, maybe you just need some modelers, or maybe you need modelers and texture artists. And so it can expand, but getting clear on the need is like the first thing it taught me. But if assuming you're there and you're very clear on here's what we need, then it's okay, well, who's the best fit for that? To truly answer that, hey, we found the best fit for you, you have to have a comprehensive understanding of the market, right? Do. And so that's where we started, right? Like, and it started as it started with me flying around the world, and then we started hiring database administrators. We have a data team now, and more, and so every conference, we'll sign up for conferences whether we're going there or not, just to see who's attending. Right. And make sure that if they are offering services and that they're not only in our database, but we actually go through and we profile them. Right. So, what capabilities are they offering? What is their past experiences? We profile them by art style, by genre, so that every time we have a new requirement from one of our clients, we can say confidently, probably not who the best fit is, but we could give them, here's the top 6 that I think these are all based on your budget and kind of like your work culture. Here's probably like 6 people that could all do a really good job. And then the next way to, then that's when you start to solicit proposals, right? And you go through the next step of the evaluation. And that's, that we obviously do a lot of work as well to kind of make sure they have the right information, and whether that's through the proposal itself or through interviews or art tests, that they have all the information they need to make a really good hiring decision for the success of their project.
Right. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
But another question. Do you believe that outsourcing is or appears to be having a bad reputation in the gaming industry?
Do you guys think that?
Looks like it, yes, because like it's whenever you talk to some people from the industry, it's like, oh, outsourcing, okay. It's like I'd better do something else, better go somewhere else. Yeah, it's like, people usually, there are a lot of times that people just lose interest when they just find out that we are from outsourcing company.
Yeah,
this happens.
Yeah. I mean, so we all see it, right? We all feel it. Yep. Like, I don't know, you hear the stories, like you're at a conference and there's a group text thread and then someone from a services company joins and then they create like a new group chat, right? Without that person.
Yeah. So, that's what I'm talking about.
Ouch.
And meanwhile, by the way, every service provider there is paying for the conference to exist in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So, I've thought a lot about this. I think there's really two things that I think contribute to this in games. And first of all, recognize that services is right now a third of all games production spend, right? Is services and by head count, it could be half, right? Just by nature of the fact that services tend to be really labor focused. But I think there's two things. One is I just generally think there's a market failure when it comes to how companies find service providers, which is one of the reasons why I started CDR, right? The idea that there's, we have 2,300 companies profiled in our database right now that are all video game specific, somewhere in the value chain that offer services and games. They all have salespeople, right? Yeah. And so the amount of just, I guess the matching problem that exists in games today that causes every one of those 23 companies to send people to game studios and to do outreach. And by the way, I don't have a perfect solution for this. Like if you're a service provider, you have to do sales. You have to, right? And that's kind of led us to where we are now. And you can kind of, if you want to go deeper in this, you can talk about, which gets me to the second thing is kind of the industry's opinion on sales in general. Right. And we all know this, like games doesn't have a good view of sales, but broadly, and people don't like being sold to, generally they prefer to learn about new things and services and products by friend referrals than they do actually kind of considering, the options in a more maybe objective or process oriented way. And so I think that's cause number one. And it's cause which causes the sales approach in games to be very friendly, which means that you can never tell if you're being sold to or not. And therefore leads to this kind of treatment of, services in general.
Regarding the salespeople, you recently posted a post, sorry for that, on LinkedIn. Talking about the outsourcing stuff, and you mentioned there that like these aggressive sales are not really good for sales. You know what I'm talking about. So this kind of an approach, why do you think is it so bad? Because now, as we were talking about salespeople and that people don't like to be sold to, this is completely true. But how can you not be aggressive if you know your company is good and you just want to contribute to the project, to the company, and you want the best for them, for their projects, for their games. And yes, people might take you as aggressive. I mean, I got a comment on Gamescom that I'm aggressive in the most positive way.
Yes.
From a client. Because I'm an account manager, so I kind of do sales, although not really. But yes, I do promote Allcorrect because I love the company, I love what we do, I love every project that we work on. And when I tell about it, I might get a bit overwhelmed, but I wouldn't say it's aggressive. I'm just transferring information, So yeah, how can we not be aggressive? What's the way here?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, everyone wants sales advice, and it's it's always context specific. So like with all advice, it's tough to be. But yeah, so like why is it the way it's in games? I don't know if I have a good answer to this question, but I have a few theories. I think one of it is just due to the relative, how young the industry is, right? Like games in the early days were, it was very tight knit, right? And there were only so many, like if you work in games for a long time, you know that how many kind of soft, skills there are, and I'm not talking, but like in order to make a good game that feels good, it's such a craft, right? And it's hard to see that value in that experience if you haven't done it. And so I think that, naturally just led to people trusting other people that they knew came from that background, right? And it was very, games is tribal is what you hear a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just naturally led to if you're not in this group, you chances are you probably don't know what we're talking about because the group started out very small. The difference today is that group's grown really large. Right.
Yeah.
And, I mentioned 2,300 companies, like it's just, I think it's just gotten to the point where, if all you're doing is trusting introductions and shoulder rubbing with that many companies out there offering services, and the chances of you landing on the right fit for your project, it's getting smaller over time.
Yeah.
Let's just say that is an unequivocal fact. So I think there's going to have to be a change. And it's got to start with the buyers. It's got to start with them recognizing that, okay, maybe there's a deeper need here I'm not considering, or there's an aspect of a type of provider that if they were, had this type of experience, like I need to know that those people are out there so I can even consider them in the first place. I need to know what a good partnership can look and feel like versus a mediocre one, right?
Yeah.
And it's got to come from the buyers. And by the way, in external development, I don't think this is the case, right? XDev people, they get all this stuff, right? Those professionals, and I would say they're really busy because they get flooded because of the fact that there's as many salespeople as there are. But they have they have respect. And I should ask you, do you guys see a difference between XDev professionals, outsourcing professionals, and how they treat you guys as providers versus maybe production leaders or studio heads or people that don't?
Of course.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your post a bit more. You have this, one of the red flags that's you pointed out is that a certain company does not have a presence on LinkedIn, but there can be reasons not to do that intentionally. For example, cultural norms, or the conscious intention not to leave a digital footprint, for some reasons, or just, For example, some countries are not just using LinkedIn that actively.
Yeah.
For example, in Asia, the Chinese, the Koreans, they use something else. They use their own platforms. In this case, are there any other ways to assess the team's credibility except for the LinkedIn presence?
Yeah, and thank you for bringing up this post. I tend to be very long-winded. You probably already realized this in this podcast, but and so I've this new post format. I had a post that went viral where I basically took a bunch of topics and tried to combine them down into something that's very bite-sized and social friendly. But you lose a lot of context when you do that, right? So I appreciate you giving a venue to dig in. So LinkedIn is one way to evaluate team, right? I mean, in terms of other ways to do it, it could be as simple as providing a resume with a proposal. Here's the team, here's their profiles. They don't need to be on LinkedIn, but if you provide resumes and from a buy side, we'll schedule interviews. And one of the things that I like to do, especially in team interviews, is okay, who's the leader of each discipline? Can we make sure to get the person responsible on the phone and actually ask them questions, right? And you'll have time for one or two, but one or two pointed questions is enough to get a sense of someone's familiarity with the topic, and you get to meet them and see them face to face. We do a lot of flying around the world on behalf of our clients. So we'll visit studios. We'll obviously just meet people in person. If the budget supports it, if you can do that with your org, such a great way to build trust, alignment, and get projects. If it's a bigger budget project, get the people together in a room for a week-long kickoff is immensely valuable, and happens very often at the AAA level. And I think again, the project budget needs to support it, but it's something you can do. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, we can keep going, but like it doesn't have to be LinkedIn specifically. It's just, okay, do we have personal relationships with the team we're working with, and do we trust that they're capable and responsible of what we're giving them, and that should work.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Also about your post. So in one of them, you said that a studio cannot be fully trusted if their portfolio only contains of unreleased projects or demos of projects. But have you come across cases where the demo is, where the demo is enough to show the potential of the studio?
If I come across cases where the demo's enough to show the potential of the studio, if it's only a demo, I don't know if I would recommend a provider in the context of my clients right now, right? Like if all you've produced as a team is a demo, there's probably other studios out there that have a little bit more experience. I mean, I don't want to, you can never say never, right? But I guess like I think the best way to consider this question is consider like the opposite. Like for example, in the art world, I had a client who needed a destructible player character model for a pitch they were making at GDC this year, and they had a short timeline, right? They tried to build it internally, they didn't like what they made, and so they're like, okay, can we get someone to do this externally? And we were able to find a studio that had an entire portfolio filled with, they specifically wanted robots, and it was robots, right? And these guys made an incredible 3-layer destructible, like beautiful thing in like a 5-week time frame because they had done it a million times, right?
Yeah.
And so we had high confidence in a short turnaround, and there wasn't a lot of room for error because they've done it so many times, right? But if you haven't done something before, chances are there's going to be a little bit of learnings, right?
Yeah.
And which is going to require that extra iteration. And so, like that's why like in the portfolio piece, if you're dead set on a certain style or gameplay feature, and just the more experience you can map to a studio in the thing, the higher the chances are that they'll be able to reproduce it reliably, and the lower the risk. And that is something that every new studio is going to have to contend with, right? Is how do we prove that we can do this? And we can talk about options here, but like portfolio is one of the strongest ways you can give confidence to a client you can do it.
Regarding insights and everything that can be useful, what would you suggest for, let's say, a young art outsourcing studio to do to get the most what they can of the market share, let's say?
Yeah. I mean, I think we touched on this earlier. Like the best thing you can do is build portfolio, right?
Yeah.
And so like that, let's just like put that aside as like, okay, like the best thing you can do is show that you're capable of doing the work by having done the work, right? And contribute to it and talk about it, right? It's so much easier to go into a sales meeting, and rather than say, here's everything we can do, you say, here's everything we have done, and here's how much it benefited our past clients, is such a stronger approach to sales. So, I think for any new studio, and this is kind of services business, this could be outside of games, like you have to start, the best place to start is with the people you trust, right? And because they're going to be open with you, they're going to give you honest feedback, and don't assume, like, when you're early, you have these advantages of being very flexible and adaptable, and you have to maximize that. And so try and creatively solve problems for your friends and your clients, rather than trying to fit them into your vision. And by the way, there's a balance here, but if you can go into it, because of the access you have to your initial network of friends, if you can get them to share some meaningful insights of challenges they're facing, and then you can then be a solution to help them personally and professionally, and then as well as their business, that's like an advantage you have, right? And so it's be adaptable. Don't try and scale too quickly into like, hey, we're going to compete in 3D environmental art because that's like a really competitive, challenging thing, but get like way more specific into to individual problems. The other thing I would suggest is, as a small studio, take advantage of every single product innovation and new technology. I mean, I'm gonna talk about AI for a second. I bet you didn't expect AI to come up in this
podcast. No. Why though?
But like, I've yet to see an art proposal with an AI concepting step in it, because as an established studio, there's so much risk, right? People have strong opinions on, the role of AI, especially in the art world, right? Where, there's a lot of gray area there. That's now an opportunity for a younger, smaller company that frankly doesn't have anything to lose, right?
Mm-hmm.
So use that to your advantage. And if you can position yourself as like, hey, by the way, we're all in on AI and we do it every step of the process, that's greenfield, because the bigger companies aren't going to be doing that. AI is an example, but it could be any technology solution, and you could even white label it if you want to, right? But like, go look at the A16Z portfolio. That entire incubator is all about making game dev more efficient, more productive. And so if you can kind of incorporate those into your service offering as a young company and include that in your pitch, and not only are you getting what you need, but you're being innovative and you're at the frontier of, and by the way, we're the ones taking the risk on this, right? I think that's really compelling and something that more studios should be doing.
That's interesting. But my question here would be, with this efficient way in producing whatever content for games you can with AI, do you think the market is going to get over flooded soon? Because this content,
if not already,
unique, but if everybody does that, then
that is not
stops being unique, and a lot at the same time. So.
I mean, we had this. So I have a personal story. So at Twitch, when I ran BD, one of the products I owned was the broadcasting SDK, which the vision was like one-click streaming from And so we put it in consoles. I put it in all these products. And the product I vividly remember is we got in Minecraft, right? And we hit launch on this product. So one-click streaming from Minecraft to Twitch. And there was this graph of like Twitch broadcasters that just boom, right? Like it went exponential. And then the graph of minutes watched did not change. It was like zero statistically significant difference, despite tens of thousands of new daily active broadcasters. Because we made the creation of content very easy. Right? Who's going to watch that?
The same amount of viewers behind the screens. So,
I like 100%. Like AI and the flood of content that's coming, that's inevitably going to come from AI. Actually, I'm going to go back to the broadcasting as forum. It took wargaming to show us the data that, by putting the broadcasting SDK into the wargaming platform, there were so many new broadcasters. It actually crowded out people that actually tried to create good content from the directory, and was hurting the growth of their community overall. And that's when we shut the program down. It was like, okay, this thing it was costing money. It was a bunch of reasons. It wasn't really providing any value. It seemed like a good idea, but in reality, it was hurting because it just created a bunch of discoverability problems, right? And so that is a challenge I think every studio is going to have to deal with, right? Like, and you've seen it already on social media. Like when Gen AI hit, you had all those viral Twitter threads. Look at these cool Gen AI image. Well, how long did that last? Like 2 months, and then now you see a Gen AI image, and you immediately devalue whatever it is you're looking at. So I don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but there's going to be a dynamic here where there's a flood of content. And as content creators, right, you'll need to differentiate your product. So it's obviously handcrafted, authored, thoughtful, emotionally resonant, everything that good entertainment products need to be. And do that in a way that's obvious that it does that. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
We'd like to touch one of the interesting moments in your career in game development. At one point, you brought in Snoop Dogg to advertise a battle royale game, SOS. Was that the most memorable moment of your gaming career, or were there even more memorizable?
That's my. I have a lot of stories, and that's the one I usually give at the front of my conference talks, just because everyone knows Snoop Dogg, right? So this happened after I left Twitch, right? I joined a Benchmark and Time Warner back startup called Outpost Games. Company had raised $25 million. We were building a social battle royale, and I was not a founder, but I reported to the board. So Mitch Lasky was one of the board members that I reported to. And, as VC-backed startups go, the board had really high expectations, right? And essentially we had to be, PUBG had just launched and we were in the battle royale space. And so that was our target. And so when you have really high aspirations, you and a lot of money, you're expected to put it to work. So our CFO came to me one day and goes, Brooke, I think we really want to throw some fuel on this launch. What if I give you $200,000? What would you do with it? And I just straight up, no wait. Oh, I'd go get Snoop Dogg.
I go party with Snoop Dogg.
He goes, really? I'm like, oh yeah, 100%. And I didn't think it was actually it sounded crazy when I said it, which of course in VC people love crazy, right? We got him. We literally, and the thing about this was that's a lot of money to me, and it's still a lot of money. It was a lot of money back then. It's not a lot of money, Snoop Dogg, right? And so they didn't tell us until the day before our launch that he had actually accepted our offer, right?
Oh my God.
Because they were trying to shop him around, right? And be like, can we get more money for Snoop? And, we were trying to make it as easy as possible for him. So keep in mind, this is a $20+ million game. I'm 27, 28 maybe at the time. I'm running all marketing, community, player support. I am stressed out of my mind. And then I get this call being like, oh, Snoop Dogg's going to play your game tomorrow. You need to figure this out. And by the way, since it was, I had nothing figured out. So luckily, I just come from Twitch. I still had friends there. They wanted Snoop Dogg on Twitch. So I called my friends up and they flew down a production team to LA. He has a compound right outside the LA airport called Boss Lady Productions. We got into this tiny little room. There's a bunch of sound stages in there, and it's literally all that it does is monetize Snoop Dogg, right? So we set up the rig, and then, a couple hours before the stream was supposed to start, the manager comes by to be like, are you guys ready? And he goes, where's the gamepad? And I go, oh, this is a PC game, like mouse and keyboard. He's like, no, Snoop doesn't mouse and keyboard.
My God.
And we didn't have player support, and rookie mistake. I've never done a Snoop Dogg. So I have to fly out my community manager, and he gets there just in time. And so and luckily the game, right? It's social battle royale. So a big part of it is the voice and talking with other avatars. And so it actually ended up going really well, where a community manager did the mouse, keyboard, and the controls, and Snoop just sat there and talked, and he rapped for a bit with some of the other players. But an hour plus in without anything, with your hands being occupied, what do you think Snoop Dogg does? He literally smoked 4 blunts end to end. And I'm not joking. And it was like a small room, and everyone left there a little buzzed, which made our launch numbers we were number 1 on Twitch. It was great. We actually had a lot of refunds. We had some issues with retention. But yeah, that that was the Snoop Dogg story. So
that is a crazy story.
Yeah.
Jesus. But that's so cool.
Yeah. Luckily I got the one photo with him. Yeah. So that will,
you posted it everywhere. Did you use it as your profile picture on every other social media that you have?
I probably should. This is one of those
yes. Things that we discussed.
No, but that's cool. Nice.
Right.
Newbies. Let's talk about newbies in the industry. People who are passionate gamers. The ones who talked to Snoop Dogg and rapped with him, and then were like, I want to come to the gaming industry and, I don't know, do something great to it.
With Snoop Dogg.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To invite him at some point.
He's a real gamer. I mean, I like, he's got a whole game set up at that place. Yeah. I would call him a real gamer.
Yeah, I mean,
but I mean, probably not a gamer has a lot of different meanings and different depending on the crew, right? If you're talking to like esports people, okay, not that type of gamer, right?
Yeah, but a passionate one. So if you want to get into the gaming industry and you just love games, where do you start? What kind of a job would you be looking for? I mean, it's 2025.
Yeah,
and it's
good question. I think I get this is career advice I give broadly. And I think it holds true in this context or really any context. Okay, I'm gonna step back and do a kind of little bit of backstory. This is from my buddy who is CTO of his startup, and he talks a lot about hiring young engineers. And one of the things that happens with young engineers in new companies, especially really smart engineers that are used to good grades and top schools, is they come in and in a professional, development organization, you go through code reviews where you'll produce software and then the senior developers will come in and basically critique your code.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
People that are used to A's on their tests hate this. Right. They don't want any critiques, right? They want their code to pass perfectly. So they'll spend so much time and with something like technology, and it could be art as well, right? You can always spend more time on something. You can always do more research, right? And so they'll spend all this time with the ideal outcome being you get no feedback from these senior engineers. Where what you should do is you should come in and just produce as much as possible. And the senior engineers, they're used to giving feedback. That's the whole point of the process. They don't think critically. And now by just throwing up code and going to code review more often, you're getting way more exposure to those really talented individuals. And as a result, you learn much faster. And you're just more visible in general. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course.
And so I think that the lesson, getting back to your original question, what advice would be is I would be produce a lot, right? Whether that's art, whether if you want to work in social media and community, produce, tweet, if you're a game developer, build, right? So whatever it is, I would say, work on, for me, when I started CDR, I wrote. Right. And I got my thoughts. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm here. Right. As you guys saw my writing. So no matter what it is, produce work and put it out in the world. And if you do that consistently, you will not only get better at such a higher rate than your peers, but people will remember you. Right. And they'll notice you and you'll give yourself a higher kind of surface area and more touch points for interaction. So that's kind of my main thing. The second thing I'll say to that is it depends on where you live in the world.
That's true.
I think North America is a tough place to be starting out in game dev today. I don't think a lot of people expect employment in the games industry in North America to keep growing. I think most people expect it to not grow, right? And so in North America, I think there's still, because it's such a big consumer market, I think depends on what you want to do. So if you want to do marketing, design, community, things that are very audience focused and, you need to understand this consumer base in order to deliver value, those I would say are decent career paths, but some of the other career paths I think will be a lot harder than if you're in some of these more emerging markets, right? Where the industry's growing, where there's more demand for, artists and kind of like individual contributor style engineers and things like that. So I think that's the other piece. And I don't know if that's, I guess that's advice, but it might not be the advice some people want to hear.
Yeah, true.
Probably. I have a question actually. If North America is the worst place to start your Korean gaming industry, which is the best?
Oh man. I mean this is going to be biased for me, right? Which is the best? I mean, I guess to me it's all any growing market, and like the markets, and when I think of growing in terms of game production, right, which is separate from consumption. So Latin America is growing like crazy. Any country that recently launched a government support program, and they have been proliferating like crazy, right? I think I counted 16 governments have launched support for games specifically, and those are subsidies and grants and incentives. Like if those exist, yes, like go for that. Where places like Canada, which has benefited from that, the most likely thing is that support's going to probably start to get pulled back over the next few years, right? So I don't know. I think those, without saying specific regions, because it's hard for me to say in between region to region. I would say, any country with an emerging market and some foundation of studios is probably a good place to start.
Yeah, I agree. I think, well, me personally, I think that Serbia is actually a very good place because it has it has growing markets, and it has a very interesting community, and I think it has a lot of potential.
Yeah. I think it's generally about Eastern Europe.
But
because
Serbia in
Serbia,
particular.
But yes, I do agree with that. We've got game association, supporting each other.
The talent in Eastern Europe's amazing. And it's interesting too. Like one of the things I think about a lot is just the manner in which each of these regions has developed, right? And a lot of that is based on like the types of projects that have traditionally ended up there, right? And so, the flavors of each region from Eastern Europe to Latin America to East Asia vary a lot in terms of the types of games and the types of kind of content that's based on, again, going all the way back to portfolio, the types of projects they've done up to that point in time, right? And so pay attention to that, right? And if you're looking at the industry in your particular region, try to figure out, well, what's here now and what are people doing? And I would suggest it's much easier to not fight the market and go with what's already working, right? And
true.
Yeah, makes sense. Is there a game that you would like to contribute to?
Good question. I think for me, and this is one of the reasons why I chose to work in CDR. And for CDR, we try to be fun and we like games and we are gamers, but like in the end of the day, we do logistics and business, right? And I think for me, the most exciting part of games is working with strong visionaries and motivated teams and people trying to bring, risky creative projects to life, right? And so it's much less the game to me than it is the team and the people and the ambition of what they're trying to do. And that's really what motivates me. So yeah, so short answer, no, I don't have a specific game. It's to me, it's the project and the mission and the team that are the most important things and the things that kind of draw me to certain projects rather than others.
Okay.
When mentioning that, are you imagining like a AAA team with a lot of people and different teams communicating, contributing to each other's work? Or is it like an indie team kind of small one, very close, passionate with the idea of this risky project that you mentioned?
Yeah, I think there's positive and negatives to both. I mean, most of our clients tend to be on the smaller side because of, our full stack offering makes more sense if you don't have a bunch of established infrastructure and things like that. On the AAA side, though, I mean, it's just the scale and complexity of what they do is so awe-inspiring and so challenging, right? That it's fun to be a small part of those organizations. And we have done some AAA consulting, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've come in and done a full art outsourcing plan for a stylized MMO in Unreal 5. And we'll come in and talk to art leads and help them, with their estimates and put that into like a onboarding plan and suggest, provider list. But, we and then we deliver that and then we're done. And that's, we get this cool window into this project and it's very time limited. And it's a lot of work, but it's still fun. So I don't know. It's it's funny because this is one of the things I talk about, like red flags, my thing. I'm not being specific on like, okay, are you one or the other? And I'm like, I kind of like both. They both have, specific offerings, but I'm, I guess I'm going to be hypocritical in this case and just stick with my guns and say I like both. We really like being treated as a part of the internal team. I don't know. That's the other side of the coin. And that happens with our kind of emerging clients where they need a lot of help. And I don't think they really understand the extent of what they, and this is true with any growing org, especially if they don't have a lot of experience working externally, like the amount of work it takes, across all, from procurement to onboarding to day to day, like it's just a lot, and I think people discount mentally how much it is. So when we actually kind of, they accept the model and we get embedded and then we really spread out and are able to get a value across a lot of the different teams in the organization, like that feels really good. So I don't know. Yeah, they're both.
Okay.
Good.
I have a visionary question. What do you think the industry will look like in 5 or 10 years from now?
Okay, I'll go first. I want to hear your answer too, though.
Oh my god,
that's okay.
That is like playing Uno.
Yeah, reverse.
Well, that's. I think that first of all, we've been talking about AI a bit today. I think the AI will change the industry in a way that is not yet understood. But I would like to compare AI with a set of revolutions throughout the history of mankind. I mean, not revolutions like French Revolution, but revolution of agricultural revolution, for example, when people at some point managed to produce huge quantities of food. Then they managed to produce machines, and the machines produce computers, and computers produce AI. And with these shifts, they changed the world, changed society forever. And there's also an interesting example that I would like to give here. Well, like in 19th century, it was a man or a woman, they were considered beautiful if they were if they had a big mass, of body mass. I mean, because that meant that they were rich and they were able to buy food,
well fed,
like in huge quantities. But nowadays, food is relatively cheap. But it is hard to be slim, actually, because you have to go to the gym, you have to pay for that, you have to eat right, and like the what we call healthy food is usually more expensive, significantly garbage. Sometimes, and which means this means that, and this is the kind of shift that illustrates our perception of food. And I think that our perception of AI and our perception of content will shift in a similar way, because nowadays, like those who create content, well, basically that was throughout most of the written history, because we admire writers, we admire artists that created like masterpieces, and those were just only very few people that managed to do that, but now everyone can do that.
Yeah.
And now we are living in a world where everyone can create a masterpiece. And this will change the world forever, but I don't know yet in what way.
Yeah.
Well, I mean...
sorry, go ahead.
No. I mean, it's good. It's good. You go first and then I go.
Yeah, I mean, I want to agree with that, and I think especially the treatment and culturally that we have of food, right, in an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset, which came before, I think is an apt analogy for content today, right, and what an abundance of content does, especially on the downsides, right? Like, we're not getting fat, but we're definitely there's negative side effects here.
We're getting kind of overfed.
Yeah, we're getting whatever that version of fat is, right? We're still trying to figure out how to describe. Yeah, and I mean, talking about revolutions, like being in San Francisco is interesting. So my wife works in commercial real estate here. She helps build out offices, and it's interesting talking to people in her industry because San Francisco is just getting filled, like, after the pandemic, the city crashed and there was a ton of open offices, and now AI companies are taking over everything. And not only that, talking to these furniture vendors and, all the people that work in there, the thing that I hear from them is like, it's amazing. It's just like the internet. There's like an AI company for everything, like for HR and for sales. And I think that, like, when you think back to like the 90s, and I remember someone telling me that I could play a video game with someone across the country.
Oh my God.
I'm like, no way. Like, that will never happen.
Yeah.
And like that, not like now that's like trivial, right? But like the extent at which the internet affected society was so crazy and unexpected in so many ways, right? So the AI is going to have effects on society, I think, in a similar broadly distributed way. That is probably gonna be unexpected in more cases than not. But yeah, anyway, so let's go back to games. Games, I think, have had its own revolutions. I think one of the under-discussed revolution in games is when the engines went free, right? Because before that, to work on AAA games, you had to buy an Unreal license. They were like $1 million, right? And it made it impossible for the rest of the world, other than, these, North America-based studios, essentially, to build AAA games. Now that's not the case, right? And which is why, like, you're seeing this kind of like flattening, I think, of games production beyond just, some of the more old school outsourced capabilities. So that was, 10 years ago. Today and moving forward, yes, there's going to be too much content and studios are going to have to differentiate, right? And so, and that, I think, is competing with the fact that things are becoming foundationally more rigid at the top of the market, right? Fortnite and Roblox, and then the network effects that these big AAA, just massive behemoths have and how much staying power they have, I don't think that's ever really going to change to some, but that is competing with the fact that there's always people that are countercultural in society, right? There's always going to be people looking for what's new, what's different. And so games will support that. It's just going to be, and I don't think this is original, but it's going to be that mid kind of tier of content that satisfies that need, right? Where you have to do more, you're going to have to do a little bit more to differentiate from this flood of content that's inevitably going to come. But then compete in a way that, like, okay, yes, the market share is going to only be so big because of the staying power of these massive brands. So I think that's one piece. And then the second piece is how different Roblox is as a platform and an industry, right? We go to every show and we look at every meeting system, and these Roblox devs don't go to game shows, right? And why would they, right? Like, there's a reason why traditional, I call them traditional now, right? Like game studios go to games conferences. It's to find funding. It's to look for IP licenses. It's for, like all these Roblox developers don't do that. They don't need to do that, right? And so they've just like established this entire separate, like, that it just feels like another industry in general. And so I think, I don't know what that's going to look like moving forward, but it feels meaningfully different from traditional games. And so, yeah, like that's the next generation, on both the kids, on both the consumption and the production side. So we got to watch that as they age up and really what happens to those audiences. Hard to have a prediction with that other than it feels different. And I think it's under discussed of how impactful that's going to be moving forward when those young professionals, right, grow up. It feels a lot when we first entered the industry at Twitch, right? Like people treated us weirdly, and they're like, why do other people want to watch other people play video games?
Exactly.
Right. And so and then just going and being like, whoa, games is so crazy. We felt very outsider-ish. And I feel like that's where Roblox is now. And so like, I don't know. I think there'll be some blending and stuff that goes on, but yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how that evolves, and I think people should be paying attention to it.
Yeah,
interesting.
Anastasia, what is your prediction for the future?
Mine is short and not very. I don't want to say smart, but not very deep, I would say. So I do believe that there's going to be a lot of content. That's obvious, but also what I do believe is people get fed up with that. And they start choosing wisely. And I do think that at some point, AI is going to be used mostly for making it efficient, but not about creativity. The creativity is going to be shifted again to, standard pipeline, let's say, human pipeline. But then AI is going to be used to make everything efficient, to channel everything, HR, whatever, outsourcing. Yeah. But creativity is going to be up to people. And this is what's going to make games unique again.
Yeah. And I think when you look at the recent failure of AAA, and when I say the recent failure, like, there's obviously been successes. I just think there was a series of high profile flops that I'm referring to here. And I think it's because that creativity was lost, right? And they got a little comfortable and repeatable, and, they started relying on scale and visual, and on certain things to differentiate other than kind of this base, like creative vision, bringing something that was emotionally resonant, impactful to market versus like, they got a little bit more too formulaic, right? And so, I 100% agree. And so it's like, how do you enable teams to be creative, but in an industry that feels very risk averse right now is if it was easy, everyone would do
it. Yes, true that. I have no idea. I hope that was a rhetorical question because I have zero answers to that. Yeah.
The last question.
Yeah.
From us.
Is it the last one? Or are we going to ask 3 other subsequent ones? Let's see. Is there any game that has impressed you in, let's say, the past couple of years?
Yes. There's one game. Have you guys played Indica? Are you familiar with Indica?
Yes, of course. I'm playing it right now.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yes, it's great.
Okay, so if this is the last question, this is good because I'm going to spoil it. So if you haven't played it and you're planning on playing it and don't want to hear a spoiler, turn this off. So, anyway, so yeah, Indica, that game blew my mind because it violated a cardinal rule of games, which I love, with creative license. Right. And so, if you're not familiar with the game, it's from a Russian team, right? That there's actually a lot written about they had to leave Russia after the war and what that meant for them, which you can go read about. It's really interesting. Anyway, you play a nun in a monastery who's poorly treated. And early in the game, the nun master, I don't know what you call, like the mistress, not mistress.
The Mother Superior, I think.
Mother Superior is from isn't it? Yeah.
There it is. So she, she's mistreating you, and she's like, go get some water. And she gives you a bucket.
Yes.
And you go over to this well, and then you have to lower the bucket down the well, and then push it back up, and then take it back, and it's very tedious. And then
5 times. 5 times.
No, 8 times or 10 times. I remember seeing the thing, and I'm like, "There's no way this game's gonna have me do this. Like something's gonna happen. Like and the game made you do it. And they actually put some narrative in there and like storytelling, but like it made you do the work. And then the woman comes over and kicks over the bucket, and like the water spills, and it's just this like, and it was so, and they did it so beautifully, and it was in such violation of respect gamers' time that was just I like floored me, and I was like, oh my god, this game is amazing, right?
Yeah, that
so like, like that's the creative risk taking I think we're talking about. Like there's all these rules, right? But dude, if you got to stand out and be emotionally you got to break the rules. So Indica is that to me was like I just loved that. I just sat there amazed that it had me do that for whatever reason, and it was so great. Yeah, despite being totally tedious.
No, but that's cool.
Yeah.
It's probably the first case I hear like this. When you have to do the manual work and then you're like, oh my god, no. She kicked the bucket.
Yes.
And that's the easiest somebody can do in a game. It's not like you lost or you lost a life or whatever. You're like, she kicked the bucket. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's all we wanted to talk today.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't want to bore you to death with our questions. That's why we're talking now.
Lovely. I hope I didn't bore you to death with my rambly answers.
No,
that was great.
So, no, this was lovely. I appreciate you guys. So yeah, I mean, I guess just to wrap up for myself, if you guys want to find me, or if anyone listening wants to find me, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's my name, Brooke Van Dusen, obviously. The the newsletter that you mentioned is on Substack. You can find that from our website, cdrexdev.com. Those are probably the 2 best ways to follow me, or you can just send me an email, also on our website. So.
We will include the links into the description for this episode.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for joining us.
All right. Pleasure.